Kamala Harris was losing from the very start.
Former President Trump will win the state of Indiana.
He leads 19 electoral college votes to 3.
You see how he's piling up the electoral votes?
Now, these early leads didn't necessarily mean anything. Those first polls closed in predominantly Republican states: Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, Oklahoma, Alabama, Tennessee, Missouri, South Carolina. One by one, they all turned red, entirely as expected, with only a small handful of states turning blue: Vermont, Massachusetts, Maryland, D.C. Again, as expected. But for all the early talk that Harris had good reason to be optimistic,
organizers for the Democrats are quite happy with the turnout in Philadelphia.
She is doing better with young voters in Georgia than Joe Biden was doing against Trump 4 years ago.
within just a couple of hours, every major news organization sounded a bit more like this.
There's a lot of red on that map. A lot of red on that map.
I don't think she can do it.
How did that happen? And what was the moment everything changed? Election night broadcasts all focus on the exact same thing: swing states.
Pennsylvania, Michigan,
Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania.
North Carolina and Georgia.
That's because the vast majority of Americans are actually quite predictable. Polling and past history had pundits figuring Trump would win all of these, and Harris would win all of these. So, in the race to a majority of electoral college votes, 270 is the magic number to become president, before the night even started, everyone just kinda assumed the score would start 226 to 219 in Harris's favor. And of all of those states, do you know how many defied expectations? Not one of them.
Fox News does project that Trump will win West Virginia. Not a very big surprise there.
Vice President Harris has taken the electoral votes for New York. Not a big surprise there.
So far, no surprises on the board.
So all the attention was on the 7 swing states, where polling told us things could go either way, starting with the so-called blue wall: Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. These were states that had been reliably Democrat for decades, until 2016, when they flipped Republican, giving Trump a clear path to the White House.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next president of the United States, Donald Trump.
In 2020, Joe Biden managed to rebuild that blue wall, recapturing all 3 states. And if Kamala Harris would have any shot at winning the presidency herself, she'd need those 3 states once again. That would put her at exactly 270 electoral college votes, no matter how any of the other swing states went. But Donald Trump had his own path to victory.
If Donald Trump wins North Carolina and Georgia, the vice president cannot win this race if she loses Pennsylvania.
Yes, Trump could also get to exactly 270 electoral college votes by taking Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania. But none of these would go his way easily. In Georgia, Trump's early lead, what started as a more than 20-point gap,
63% to 36%,
would be whittled down bit by bit as more votes came in.
Donald Trump in the lead with 54.8% of the vote, 52.7% of the vote.
Trump's up 3.2 points statewide.
In North Carolina, it was Harris out to an explosive early lead.
Kamala Harris is in the lead with 68% of the vote.
And the biggest question mark of the night: which way would the election's most valuable swing state break?
All eyes are on the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
The moment everything changed was the realization that Harris's early leads were primed to evaporate. And I'll explain what I mean. The early calls that Harris was wildly ahead in Pennsylvania.
Take a look at first results from Pennsylvania.
73% if you round up for Vice President Harris, 27% for Donald Trump.
They were an illusion. Exactly 1 minute after polls closed there, Philadelphia posted the results of more than 100,000 ballots. But they were all mail-in ballots, which, as a voting method, tends to skew Democrat. And this in an urban center, which also tends to skew Democrat.
Ton of vote out there, by the way. I mean, there's no conclusions at the Keystone State.
And that early lead did not hold. As more and more day of votes were counted, Republican votes, that lead shrunk dramatically, from the high 70s down to the 60s, then into the high 50s, and even into the low 50s.
Only 1/3 of the votes have been counted there.
North Carolina tracked that same path. It took just 1 hour after polls closed there for Trump to turn the tables on Harris, taking the lead in that state and never letting go. North Carolina would actually be the first swing state the American networks would formally call for Donald Trump.
Former President Donald Trump will win the state of North Carolina.
A big win for former President Trump. It's the first battleground we're calling tonight.
Georgia would be the second battleground state to definitively fall Trump's way.
The state of Georgia will go to former President Donald Trump.
Donald Trump is the projected winner in the state of Georgia.
This is a big win.
In the immortal words of Bob Dylan, you don't have to be a weatherman to know which way the wind is blowing.
It was becoming clear at this point Trump had a broader coalition of support than he'd had in either of the past two elections. And Harris was underperforming, not just where Democrats had historically been weak, but even where they had historically been strong.
It's not mission impossible, but the more you get deeper into the count, does it become mission improbable?
She's got to win Pennsylvania. If she doesn't win Pennsylvania, it's over.
So just after midnight Eastern time, she would come about as close to giving up as one can without formally giving up.
So you won't hear from the vice president tonight, but you will hear from her tomorrow.
We can see people already immediately leaving.
If we can describe the start of this night as having the vibe of a wedding, it is slowly morphing into what feels more closer to possibly a funeral.
And about 90 minutes after that, the third critical domino would fall: Pennsylvania. By 2 a.m. Eastern, a majority of U.S. networks would call it for Trump, and both ends of the political spectrum, Fox News and MSNBC, would call the whole thing.
Donald Trump has won the state of Wisconsin, which means he is the winner of this race.
He is now the second president in U.S. history to win non-consecutive terms.
You know, before election night, the big debate was how the swing states would be divvied up. Who would win Pennsylvania? Could Trump break through the blue wall? Could Dems snatch up the Sun Belt? But by the time I went to bed at whatever o'clock it was, Donald Trump was meaningfully ahead in every single battleground state.
Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. We are now winning in Michigan, Arizona, Nevada.
Now, the counts still aren't final. The peculiarity of an election in a country of nearly 350 million people, where 50 states effectively run their own elections, is that election night ended without a complete slate of official results. Importantly, Republicans have flipped the Senate, and they could still win the House, claiming both chambers of Congress, a unified Republican government under Trump's direction, depending on how the remaining count goes. That process will take time. But no matter how you look at it, Trump has managed one of the most dramatic political comebacks of our time. He won the Electoral College, he won the popular vote, and America's 45th president will also be its 47th.
I will not let you down. America's future will be bigger, better, bolder, richer, safer, and stronger than it has ever been before. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.